Chapter 7 Neverland. The night sky was filled to the brim with stars. Amid the sound of waves, a pirate ship was visible in the distance. A small island sat in the sea, Neverland, the realm of dreams where no one ever had to grow up. A shooting star slid down through the heavens, except this star zigzagged through the air, flitting this way and that. A fairy glimmering bright as that strange star, Tinker Bell watched it fall until it finally plunged headlong into parts unknown. Tinker Bell flew off in search of it. The morning after the star had fallen, a lone figure was looking this way and that in the center of a settlement of tents embroidered with geometric patterns. I can't find it. The owner of a set of big black ears, Mickey, was just the tiniest bit panicked. While the Star Shard's usual antics bringing him to this world were all fine and dandy, the impact of his fall had flung it off somewhere. He wouldn't be able to get around without it. Having combed every inch of the area, Mickey at last spotted the shard behind a tent. He was so absorbed as he ran up to it that he was slow to notice the dark presence nearby. When he finally sensed the malice behind him and turned, a deep black hole had already opened. From it appeared a boy in a mask, Vanitas. Move it. No sooner had he heard the low voice than Mickey felt a powerful blow. His vision went dark, and he fell unconscious. When did he move? Meanwhile, Vanitas could not conceal his shock and confusion. His attack had struck home. He'd felt it land. But the moment he did, his target had vanished. Casting a dubious look at the empty ground, Vanitas saw a glowing fragment lying there. The star shard skittered quietly when Vanitas kicked it away. Terra guided his Keyblade glider forward. His sights set on a world he had yet to visit floating a ways off. He had learned many things on the 3 worlds he had visited after parting ways with Ven and Aqua. He had also been pondering his next move the entire time. Not once had he encountered Vanitas. He couldn't even sense any trace of him. The world Terra set down upon was full of sharp cliffs, offering a commanding view of a beautiful sea below. Neverland. He could hear water rushing rather loudly in the distance, most likely a waterfall. As Terra wandered aimlessly toward the noise, he heard a cry of a man up ahead. He hastened his steps as he found a rather seedy-looking man with a groomed mustache and a red hat and clothing, wielding a pointed rapier. Alongside him was an older man wearing bifocals and a striped shirt, who seemed to be the first man's underling. They stood at the center of a pack of unversed. What are they, Captain Hook? Terrified, the old man trembled as he looked imploringly to his companion. So his name was Captain Hook. Come to think of it, the left hand of the man with the rapier hook had indeed been replaced by a curved hook. Hook and the little man were protecting a large treasure chest. Back! You'll not get me treasure! Hook shouted at them, but the two were no match for what they were up against. Terra jumped in between the unversed and Hook, shouting, Leave them to me. He readied his Keyblade and laid into the unversed. Meanwhile, Hook and the old man made a run for it. Terra felt that these unversed were not only greater in number, but also more of a threat here than in previous worlds. But as he deftly handled his Keyblade, he realized he had grown during the course of his journey too. As things stood now, he was still probably okay without drawing on the power of darkness. He remembered Master Xehanort's words. Though Terra wanted to help the one who had seen something in him, he still couldn't get over that mental block. As Terra caught his breath once the last of the unversed had fallen, Hook and the old man emerged from their hiding place behind a tree, grumbling all the while. If I'd desired your assistance, I'd have demanded it. We had the situation under control. Isn't that right, Smee? Oh, yes, Captain, completely. We would have cleaved those fiends to the brisket, we would. Why, I'd have given him a little of this, and this. Joining in with Hook's gripes, the elderly fellow called Smee began to act out a fight with exaggerated gestures. From what Terra could see, he wouldn't have fared very well against the unversed. Hook, too, ignored Smee in favor of starting a conversation with Terra. You don't appear to be in league with those knaves, but don't think your efforts mean you'll get a share of me treasure. Hook indicated the large chest. I'm not after your precious box, Captain. I'm looking for a person, a boy wearing a mask. Ring any bells? No, not a one. Hook answered curtly, then turned away. Figures. Vanitas wasn't on this world either, which likely meant that Tara would need to recheck the worlds he had been to before. As Tara contemplated his options, Hook addressed Smee, who was still flailing around.
Smee, you blithering barnacle! We're off! We shall leave this place before the light draws him back again. Light?
That word caught Tara's interest.
Hey, hold on. What did you just say about the light?
With his back turned, Hook smiled slyly at Tara's question as he realized he could play this to his advantage. He quickly spun around, sauntered up to Tara, and pointed at the treasure chest again.
Ah, yes, it's heartbreaking, really. This chest, you see, contains all light gathered from all around, but that dreadful boy is sure to fly down and seize it.
A boy who could fly? Was that one of Vanitas' abilities? No, he'd never heard anything about that. This person stealing light did concern him, though. It might be best to meet the boy for himself.
Hey, why don't I help you keep the light safe? Maybe you can tell me more about this boy who's troubling you. What's his name?
Tara offered. Hook's face twisted, as if the very idea of uttering the name was detestable as he told him.
Peter Pan.
So it wasn't Vanitas after all. Either way, why was this Peter Pan searching for light? What was his purpose?
This chest must be brought to Skull Rock safely. Don't let that Peter Pan anywhere near it. Right, I've got you covered.
Tara nodded at Hook's instructions. This world's unversed infestation was unlike anything he'd seen before. Tara did away with the monsters, protecting Smee and Hook while they hauled the chest. They managed to make it through a valley and arrived at an inlet. He could make out a vessel and sails that resembled a pirate ship in the distance. That had to be Hook's ship. Upon reaching the end of the inlet, they found a lagoon with a small boat anchored there.
This is the spot,
Smee told them. As Tara and Hook boarded the boat, he could see a skull-shaped boulder up ahead. So that had to be Skull Rock.
Just a bit farther, men,
Hook arrogantly proclaimed. Casting a sidelong glance at him, Tara helped Smee lift the chest out of the boat. They could get into the skull through the mouth. Smee unsteadily set the chest inside the cave.
Well done,
said Hook, while Smee wiped sweat away from his face. Was this Peter Pan kid even going to show up? Tara carefully scanned the area while Smee and Hook talked off to the side.
Pardon me, Captain, but it's about that shooting star I was mentioning to you. Mr. Smee, I ordered you to drop that. I'll not have you gushing on about some shooting star. But Captain, most shooting stars twinkle for a bit and then they go out. But this one, it kept on sparkling and shining even after it crashed down. Why, what if it's a really big, enormous, priceless gemstone? Idiot! Why didn't you tell me?
Hook squawked at Smee. Whatever it was seemed to be of the utmost importance to him. It didn't particularly interest Tara, though.
We've a bit of business to attend to and must, I fear, step away. I trust you can see to things till I return. Sure. When Peter Pan gets here, I'll be waiting,
Tara assured Hook. With that, the captain and Smee left the cave.
What kind of boy would be after the light?
Ow! After Ven's Keyblade glider was blasted away during his farewell with Experiment 626 in deep space, he'd arrived at an unknown seashore. Ven came to a halt and gazed at the sea foam between the boulders. It was his first time seeing anything like this. Wait, have I? The smell of the water and the sound of the waves triggered some faint recollection, but Ven couldn't make heads or tails of it. Here the weather was fair, and it was comfortably warm. Maybe I'm just kind of worn out. Ven flopped down on the grass and looked up at the sky. It was as clear as could be. This world was so pleasant. Breakers crashed in the distance, lulled by the sunlight and the sound of the surf. Ven's eyes drifted shut. A little break wouldn't hurt. After hitting it off with Liam Radiant Garden, Ven had made new friends on each of the next 3 worlds he visited. Hopefully, he'd be able to keep up the streak. Far away, he heard the sound of a bell ringing. What could that be? Tinkerbell! It was someone's voice. He ain't moving. Who isn't moving? Let's try kicking him. Who's kicking what now? When Ven cracked an eye open, something sparkling came into view. The source of the light was a tiny girl? A fairy? As soon as the thought crossed his mind, the girl's leg flicked up to kick him right on the nose. Ven quickly rolled away from the girl, and the momentum of her kick carried her off, spinning off through the air. Who are you? said a boy dressed in a fox costume hovering over him. Ven got to his feet and replied, "Name's Ventus, but everybody just calls me Ven." It took Ven a moment to get his bearings. What he had intended to be a little breather must have turned into a full-on snooze session. "But where'd you come from?" The next question came from a chubby boy in a bear suit. "Well, you see..." He wasn't sure what to say in situations like this. As Ven racked his brain, the fairy girl flew back and yanked on the boy's fox ears. All right, we're going." "So long, Ven." The fox kid set off with the bear kid in tow. Ven was curious about their destination. "Hey, where are you guys off to?" The two stopped and looked back. "Tink saw a shooting star. We're gonna go hunt it down," the bear kid replied. "A shooting star? Whoa, I could hunt down a shooting star like the ones I saw in Land of Departure. That sounds kind of fun. Mind if I come along?" "Course not, but you gotta agree to follow us," the fox boy said cheerily. "Yeah, it's, right over..." As the bear kid spoke, Ven noticed the fairy was flying a little bit higher until she suddenly took off on her own. "That away, by the camp!" "Ready, men? Forward, march!" With that, the bear and the fox kids moved out. "'Kay!" Ven followed after them. Now that he thought about it, he hadn't made friends with any boys who were his age or a bit younger. Lee and Herc seemed older, while Huey, Dewey, and Louie seemed more like little kids. "Hey, what are your names?" Ven asked as he caught up and positioned himself between the two. "Names? I'm Cubby," the bear kid said. "I'm Slightly," replied the fox boy. "And you?" When Ven addressed the fairy girl next, she flew circles in the air in a shower of glittery sparkles. "She's Tinkerbell. We all call her Tink," said Cubby for her. The four strolled along the seaside deep in conversation until a wicked presence arrived to block their path. "Unversed!" Ven planted himself in front of the other three to protect them and readied his keyblade. "Let's get out of here!" "It's too dangerous!" "Huh? But Ven was ready to do battle, but Slightly and Cubby practically dragged him away from the water and into a lush green jungle. In the center was a big old tree, gnarled and bare, and a view of a rounded mountain. At the sound of a rooster's crow, Ven looked all around, but found no sign of a bird or anything else. Just then, a youth dressed in all green swooped down from the sky. "Peter Pan!" Slightly and Cubby cried out in unison. The boy called Peter Pan gave Ven's face a careful inspection, scattering a few sparkles just like Tink. "Who do we have here? Never seen you before." "I'm Ventus. Just call me Ven." "Well, if you say so." Peter Pan gave a brief response, as if he'd lost interest in Ven as soon as he introduced himself, then walked up to Slightly and Cubby, the Lost Boys, and shouted, "'Tention!" Slightly and Cubby stood up straight and saluted at Peter Pan's signal. Apparently, Peter Pan outranked the other two. "Now then, men, I don't suppose you want to capture some real pirate treasure?" Peter Pan asked, standing before the duo. The boys remained stock still as they replied, "Real pirate treasure? Sure." "Well, guess who caught sight of Hook right when he was stashing his treasure? What do you say we sneak in and grab it?" "Oh boy, let's go!" The two jumped up and down happily. Tink, who had been watching them, gave them each a kick on the cheek, then darted in front of Peter and started flailing in angered protest to tell him something. "Tinkerbell, what's gotten into you?" Peter said with concern. "We were all supposed to go hunt for a shooting star together," Ven answered in her place. "Forget that. Pirate treasure is way more fun. Tink, you're coming with us." Tink just turned away and flitted off. "Well, that's no way to respond to an invitation. Come on, Ven, you're a better sport than her, right?" So Peter said, but Tink had seemed sad to leave, and Ven really was interested in that fallen star. "I'd love to join you, but first I want to find the shooting star." Ven replied to Peter before going after Tink. Meanwhile, Peter Pan and the Lost Boys struck out for Skull Rock to steal Captain Hook's treasure. Slightly and Cubby scoped out the scene from a cliff. An unfamiliar figure was standing in front of Hook's chest. "That old codfish. Looks like he's found himself a new flunky." Judging by his looks, he was a pretty tough customer. "I'll fly down and distract him. Men, you move in and nab the treasure." Slightly and Cubby nodded at Peter's orders. He returned the gesture, then nimbly leaped down from their position and swooped lightly over the man. "Are you Peter Pan?" "That's me." Peter drew a dagger from his waist with a quick glance at Slightly and Cubby. "The light is not yours to take." The man called out, and the two clashed blades. Peter's powers of flight should have given him the advantage. However, the man was casting spells and closing in. Well, Peter couldn't care less about him, as long as they got the treasure. When Peter landed on the ground, the man asked him, "What do you want with the light?" "Light? What light?" Peter didn't know what that question was about. He tilted his head questioningly, and at that moment, Slightly's voice echoed through the cavern. "Look, Pan, we got the chest!" Slightly and Cubby were carrying the big chest together. "Not yet, you blockheads!" "Hey!" As Peter's frustrated shout implied, they were still close enough for the man to catch them. Slightly and Cubby broke into a run as they hauled the box, but ended up taking a spill. "That hurt!" "Oh, sorry!" From the upended chest spilled a trove of gold coins and gemstones. "Now what's this?" "Pirate treasure, of course. Jewels, doubloons, you know, the usual stuff," Peter replied. The man seemed surprised by the contents of the chest. "I've been guarding a pile of loot?" he asked with regret. Peter answered with just the slightest hint of exasperation. "Sounds like you've been tricked." "I'll say. I owe you an apology. I picked a fight over nothing." He turned to Peter and dipped his head. It was all in good fun. Not every day you get to fight such a good swordsman. Say, what's your name anyway?" Peter inquired, crossing his arms. The man gave his name, Tara. "Right then, Tara. Which way did Hook go?" "They said something about a shooting star." Peter Pan's expression changed at Tara's reply. "Shooting star? Tinkerbell must be in trouble. Men, guard that treasure with your lives." He sprang into the air and soared out of Skull Rock, quick as could be. "Aye, aye, sir. You go and get him, Pan." The lost boys, Slightly and Cubby, cheered for Peter as he took off. "I should be on my way." Tara walked away after Peter Pan. Tink led Ven to a cluster of cloth tents woven with geometric patterns. Next to one of them, he spotted something shaped like a blue star. "Hey, that's not Mickey's star shard, is it?" Tink flew up to the star shard before Ven could reach it, only to find her path barred by an arm. "A shooting star and the pixie! Must be me birthday." An uncouth man clad in crimson with a well-groomed mustache, Captain Hook, grabbed Tink in his right hand and scooped up the star shard with his hook that took the place of his left. To his rear stood a pirate under his command, Smee. "Let Tinkerbell go!" Ven rushed toward him, his keyblade ready. "Ha! One of Peter Pan's brats! Well, tell that cowardly sparrow, if he wants his precious Tinkerbell back, he'd best meet me at Mermaid Lagoon." With that parting shot, Hook and Smee turned on their heels and fled. "Stop!" Ven hurried after them, only to find a gang of unversed in his way. "Scram!" he yelled, dispersing the creatures with his keyblade until a plant-shaped unverse sent him sprawling. He fought and fought, but they just kept appearing, and they didn't show any signs of letting up soon. What was worse, they were tougher than any unversed he had faced in the past. Finally ridding himself of the last of them, Ven sprinted in the direction Hook had fled, but there was no sign of them anywhere. "I lost them." He let out a deflated breath. The sun was warm and bright, just as it had been when he'd first arrived. The shimmering sunlight brought to mind his conversation with Terra and Aqua the night before the Mark of Mastery exam. The stars were worlds, and their light came from the hearts in that world, or that's how he remembered it. What were Terra and Aqua up to now? No, this wasn't the time or place. He had to save Tink. Just as Ven looked up and started forward, Peter Pan swooped down from above. "Tinkerbell's been pixie-napped!" Ven delivered the bad news. A grim look appeared on Peter's face, and then he crossed his arms in frustration. "Then I'm too late. Hook's gonna pay for this." "He said to meet him at Mermaid Lagoon." "Gotta be an ambush. That old codfish thinks he's clever." Peter Pan started to fly off without a further word. "Hey, I'm going too!" Ven felt partly responsible for Tink's abduction. Peter turned back to Ven in midair. "Well, we have to hurry. Can you keep up?" he challenged. "You bet!" Ven answered with a grin, then dashed off. Coming out from Skull Rock, Tara stopped and looked at the sky. How many times now had he been deceived and used on this trip? His own gullibility was tremendously upsetting. He was furious with himself. Have I learned anything at all on this journey? The moment Tara closed his eyes and lowered his head, an ominous rumbling shook the whole island as screams came from inside Skull Rock. "Ah! Monsters! Somebody help!" Those were the cries of the Lost Boys. Tara rushed into the cave. An unbelievable sight awaited him within. No, he had seen this before. It was the same kind of massive unversed horde he'd encountered in the lanes between just before heading to deep space. Hurrying toward the two fleeing boys, Tara placed himself between them and the creatures. "Stay back!" Tara swung his keyblade at the throng of unversed with all the rage he felt toward himself. While they had numbers on their side, Tara had the advantage of being much stronger than each individual. What have I been doing all this time? What have I accomplished? What path should I have taken? What should I do now? And what about my dream? Am I still really friends with Ven and Aqua? Tara lashed out with his keyblade. Master Ericus would never recognize him as a Keyblade Master in this state, so Tara mused on Master Xehanort's opinion of him. He'd been overjoyed when Master Xehanort gave him his blessing. It was the whole reason he'd set off on his journey to track down Vanitas for him. It was as Master Xehanort had said, true power was a balance of light and dark, and yet Tara could do battle just fine without drawing upon the darkness. He'd learned he could win without breaking the rules. He would not lose to the power of darkness. He wanted to help Master Xehanort without giving in. He also wanted to smile with Ven and Aqua again. Our dream, it's to become Keyblade Masters together. That's the one thing that'll never change. Tara struck down the final unversed. "Boy, you sure cut those monsters down to size." The Lost Boys came running up to Tara as his shoulders heaved with each breath. "Shh." Tara quieted them as he noticed someone coming outside the cave. "Ahoy! How fare ye, lad?" "Hook!" The Lost Boys shared a look when they heard the distant voice. "Go hide." The Lost Boys scurried off at Tara's order. "Fine, all's well." Tara replied to Hook once the boys were completely out of sight. Showing himself at last, Hook approached with what looked like a lantern in his hand. Trapped inside it was a tiny, shimmering, pixie-like girl. "What's that?" "Tinker Bell, one of Peter Pan's dearest friends." "Can I take a look?" Hook handed the lantern over at Tara's request, then turned away and grandly proclaimed, "So long as I have his precious pixie, Pan's demise is all but assured." But before Hook could burst into full-on cackling, a freshly freed Tinker Bell booted him on the nose. Hook backpedaled with a cry, then wheeled furiously on Tara. "What's the meaning of this?" "You know, I didn't give it that much thought. Just doing what my heart tells me. That's mutiny, and you'll walk the plank for it." As Hook shook with rage, Tara summoned his Keyblade. Just then, however, a sound like a ticking of a clock drew near. "That sound!" As Hook turned fretfully toward the noise, a large crocodile appeared in a small inlet a short distance ahead, staring intently at him. "Ah!" Hook threw his arms into the air with a shriek and fled blindly from the cave. "Hooray! We sure showed Hook this time!" Slightly cried, bouncing up and down along with Cubby. Tinkerbell sprinkled a glowing powder on the three of them from above. It lit up the gloom of the cavern like a starry sky. Tinkerbell flew a happy circuit around Tara, then darted out of the cave. Tara recalled the stars he and his friends had seen the night before the exam. I wonder what the other two are up to right now. There are so many other worlds beyond our own, worlds we knew nothing about. The light shining down on us comes from the hearts of everyone who lives up there. Maybe Tinkerbell's sparkles are part of that same light too. "Ah, so much for the pirate treasure," Cubby moaned. Tara walked up to the Lost Boys and asked, "Did you guys really want the jewels and gold that badly?" The contents of the treasure chest had been scattered everywhere during the battle with the Unversed, leaving the box empty, and none of the loot was anywhere to be found. "Nah, we don't care about that stuff." But Pan was counting on us." Tara knelt down to place himself on eye level with them, then placed a hand on Slightly's shoulder and said, "I'll tell you what, put the stuff that's really special to you in there. That can be your treasure." "Yeah! Really swell idea, thanks!" The Lost Boys joyfully expressed their gratitude and walked off, toting the empty chest. There was an undeniable spring in their step. "Kinda makes me wonder what I'd put in there." Alone, Tara gave a look at the dim ceiling of the cavern and Tinkerbell's light flitting overhead. Tara bid a solitary farewell to Neverland. Splitting up with Hook, who had headed to Skull Rock with Tinkerbell, Smee returned to the pirate ship and observed the goings-on at the lagoon through a telescope. With Tinkerbell in their clutches, they should be able to wipe out Pan and his brats in one fell swoop. Smee spotted Peter Pan and the boy he had seen him with earlier at the lagoon.
"Peter Pan, ahoy! Man the Long Tom, and fire!"
At Smee's signal, a cannonball shot out from the pirate vessel and landed right between Peter and Ven at the lagoon.
"Cannon fire? Where's it coming from?"
Ven brought his keyblade up with a shout as he scanned the area.
"On the water, over there."
Peter pointed across the sea. Another cannonball was coming their way from the pirate ship on the water. Like the first, it exploded right between Ven and Peter. Just then, a small light swooped down. It was Tinkerbell.
"Tink, it's you! And you're all right,"
Peter Pan explained. Tinkerbell flew up his face and pantomimed an explanation.
"What? A strange fellow with a funny-looking sword has—"
Yet another cannonball interrupted Peter, whizzing past him. His expression grew stern as he said to Ven,
"Hold on, I gotta stop that cannon."
"Okay, I'll go after Hook," Ven replied with a nod.
"Right, Tink, if you would."
At Peter Pan's word, Tinkerbell fluttered around Ven, sprinkling a glowing powder over him.
"What?" "It's pixie dust. Bet you feel lighter now, don't ya?"
Peter kicked off the ground and floated into the air.
"I bet you can fly too, if you believe."
With those parting words, Peter soared off toward the pirate ship. Ven was staring at his feet.
"I can fly? If I believe?"
And that was when he started drifting up, light as a feather.
"Awesome!"
Soaring through the air, he set off for Mermaid Lagoon, where Hook awaited. Cannon fire thundered in the distance. At Mermaid Lagoon, Hook listened to the low rumbles as he waited with crossed arms for Peter Pan, whom he secretly hoped would not, in fact, turn up. If the cannon got him, Pan wouldn't come here. The end of the cannon fire meant the demise of Peter Pan, and indeed, the cannon went silent. Hook let out a massive sigh.
"Alas, and so passeth a worthy opponent. To think that his would be such an inglorious end."
Hook slumped over in lamentation until he could no longer contain his mirth. His dejection turned to cackling, and then a loud shout to the heavens.
"At last, that scurvy brat will never trouble me again." "I wouldn't be so sure of that, Hook."
Then came dashing up.
"Swoggle me eyes. No, don't tell me."
Hook hurriedly peered through his telescope at the pirate ship. There he spied Peter Pan celebrating his victory over a toppled Smee on the deck.
"Blast that Peter Pan!"
Hook hurled his telescope to the ground and stamped his foot in anger. He then jumped to a small isle in the lagoon and drew his rapier on Ven. But yet again, the tick-tock of a clock reached his ears.
"That sound!"
Near Hook's feet, as he searched around in terror, a crocodile gazed up from the water.
"No, not again! Stay away from me!"
Hook tried to flee in panic, but Ven blocked his escape.
"I don't think so,"
Ven declared, then lunged at Hook. The contest didn't take long. Ven swung his keyblade up from below and caught Hook right on the chin, pushing him backward and into the water. The crocodile made a beeline for Hook, where he bobbed on the surface.
"Ah! Leave me alone!"
Hook leaped out of the water and practically ran up atop the sea as he fled.
"Help me, Smee! Smee!"
The croc gave chase. As he watched them go, Ven heard Cubby calling from a ways off. "Ahoy! Look what we brought!" Looking toward the hail, Ven saw Slightly and Cubby approaching in a dinghy, along with Peter Pan flying above them. "It's a pirate's treasure chest!" Slightly cried. There was indeed a large chest in the boat. When they reached the lagoon, everyone helped unload it.
"Treasure?"
Ven asked excitedly, and Peter explained.
"Yup, the same chest I told you about. We snatched it right from Hook's hiding place."
Unable to wait any longer, Peter opened the chest. But...
"Huh? How come it's empty?"
Ven peeked into the box from behind Peter Pan, and unfortunately, there wasn't anything inside.
"Oh, sorry, but we lost it, all the treasures,"
Cubby said apologetically.
"Oh, well, that's too bad,"
Ven said with shared disappointment, while Peter Pan stood up with a shrug.
"Ah, who needs it? It was probably just full of dumb old jewels and doubloons or something anyway."
Slightly suggested, "We could just put what we treasure in there instead if you wanna."
"Yeah, that's perfect,"
Peter Pan readily agreed.
Instead of filling it up with jewels and gold and stuff, we'll put in what's truly special to us, the real riches."
The lost boys grinned, then ran off and shortly returned with armloads of toys and other miscellaneous items. Apparently, they kept this stuff hidden most of the time.
"What are you putting in, Ven?"
Peter Pan said to him.
"I don't know."
Ven thought for a moment, then pulled out his wooden keyblade he had received from Tara.
"How about this? This is my greatest treasure."
What is it?"
"It's just something that one of my best friends gave me."
Ven held the wooden keyblade aloft as he answered.
"So it's like a keepsake, huh? You sure you want to part with something that special?"
Peter Pan said with a touch of concern.
"Yep, I don't need it if I've got Tara and Aqua. Our best memories are still ahead."
That was why he wanted it kept in the chest. The wooden keyblade would always remain his treasure, even if he didn't have it with him all the time. So he wanted to store it alongside the most cherished possessions of Peter Pan and his friends here.
"All right then, next time you visit, we'll have an even bigger chest waiting. Enough for all those treasures and lots more,"
said Peter.
"Okay, it's a deal."
Nodding, Ven placed the keyblade inside the chest. It was then that Tinkerbell carried over the star shard to put it in as well.
"Oh wait, Tink!"
She looked up at Ven as he spoke to her.
"I'm pretty sure that belongs to a friend of mine. Do you think maybe I could hang on to it?"
Tinkerbell shook her head and drew back when Ven extended his hand to her.
"Now, Tink!"
Peter Pan raised his voice scoldingly, and with some reluctance, Tinkerbell handed over the star shard.
"Thank you."
The moment Ven accepted it with a smile, a powerful light radiated from the shard, so intense it made everyone cry out. It swallowed Ven, and he vanished. He's gone! Slightly worriedly looked around where Ven had stood.
"Look, the light!"
said Cubby as he gazed at the sky. Just like when the shooting star had fallen, they could see a bright light zipping about every which way as it made its ascent. Peter Pan spoke quietly as he watched the light.
"Don't worry, men. No matter where that light takes him, Ven'll always have friends waiting to meet him."
Ven's companions from Neverland kept their eyes on the glimmering speck as it drew further away until it finally disappeared. She hadn't found Tara, or Ven for that matter. Aqua proceeded along the lanes between on her Keyblade glider. She'd encountered both of them at once in Radiant Garden, and during her visits to the worlds before that she had managed to see them one-on-one. But ever since leaving Radiant Garden, she'd only heard rumors of Tara, not actually met him. Ven she had yet to see or hear much about at all. Where are they now? What are they doing? Aqua's chest was full of emotion as she landed in a new world. The place was lined with distinctive tents covered in geometric patterns. It would appear she was somewhere on a large island. Looking around, Aqua saw a piece of paper rolled up like a cylinder next to a tent. She absent-mindedly reached out to pick it up when she heard a child's voice.
"Over here! I'm gonna be leader!"
Aqua scooped up the paper, ready to hand it over to the owner of the voice, a boy in a fox costume. He was with another boy in a bear outfit.
"Aww!"
The two boys cried out at once.
"We were so close,"
the fox boy said with chagrin. Unsure what the fuss was about, Aqua was about to give them the scroll when a youth suddenly swooped down from the sky.
"Too bad, Lost Boys. Tough break."
"But Peter..." The kids known as the Lost Boys said the youth's name. It would appear that this flying boy was called Peter. He continued.
"No buts, you know the rules. The first one to find and claim the treasure map gets to be the leader, and that's you,"
Peter declared as he stood before Aqua. "Leader?" Aqua asked back, not grasping the situation.
"Of the expedition! We're going on a treasure hunt, and that's our map you got."
The boys explained, indicating the paper Aqua held. It was then that a girl like a tiny fairy joined them in a burst of glitter, then flew over to Peter and began to make a fuss.
"What do you mean? I never said girls can't be part of the gang. Come on, Tink, the more the merrier."
A treasure hunt. Aqua wasn't sure she really had time for that. She needed to find Tara. "I'm sorry, but I have something else I need to take care of. Here, you keep it." The pixie girl nodded happily when Aqua offered the map to Peter.
"Too bad, but rules are rules. I guess we'll just have to call off the treasure hunt,"
he stated to the Lost Boys. "No!" Watching their exchange, Aqua felt a little sorry for the two dejected boys. With a sigh and a smile, she amended. "All right, you win. I'll join you for one expedition." Whoopee! The Lost Boys jumped in the air jubilantly. Aqua watched them with a grin. Maybe they were just a bit younger than then? She unfurled the map so they could see it. As far as I can tell, we're here, and this mark here is where we'll go to find the treasure. Enough pointing. Come on, let's go. The Fox Boy tugged Aqua's sleeve. Wait a second, we still don't even know our leader's name. I'm Peter Pan. The jealous one over there is Tinkerbell. Peter Pan introduced himself and the pixie hovering beside him together. I'm Slightly, and I'm Cubby. So the boy in the fox suit was Slightly, and the one in the bear suit was Cubby. And you are? Aqua. Her answer brought a grin to Peter Pan's face. So you're Aqua. Huh? How does he know who I am? Before she could voice her question, though, Peter Pan soared high up into the sky. Now, first stop, Mermaid Lagoon! Oh, okay. Recovering with a nod, she walked after Peter, prompting the Lost Boys to follow. They passed through the ravine with a river flowing through it, traversed the jungle, and came upon a small lagoon. They could hear shouts from the other side. I have you now, Peter Pan! Today's the day I shall be rid of you forever! A lone mustachioed man dressed in red clothing and a pirate hat with a big feather stood upon a small island in the middle of the lagoon. To Aqua, he seemed disreputable, even creepy. I'm busy right now, Hook. We're on an expedition. Can I show you up some other day? Peter Pan started forward again as if he couldn't be bothered. You'll show me up now. Give back me treasure. The man called Captain Hook stamped his foot on the ground angrily. Who's that? That's just Captain Hook. He's a 2-bit pirate codfish. Peter answered Aqua's question warily. I'll cleave you into 2 bits, boy. Smee! Calling to what was presumably one of his henchmen, Hook brought down the artificial left hand for which he was named and then hustled off. And once he did, a cannonball shot from the ship anchored offshore and made landfall right by Aqua and the others. Whoa! We're sitting ducks out here. Run! Aqua urged the Lost Boys to hurry, only to discover unversed in their path. Leave them to me, she said. Peter Pan nodded to Aqua and flew ahead, leading the Lost Boys. Got it! Okay, men, this way! The Lost Boys followed. Once she made sure they were out of sight, Aqua cast magic at the unversed. Cannon fire rained down around them. She had been to several worlds now, but it felt like the unversed here were the strongest yet. But they were still no match for her after her travels. Avoiding shots from the cannon, she took down wave after wave. Once she finished them, she went after Peter Pan and the others. Her pursuit led her to the base of a steep ascent called Rainbow Falls, where water spilled down from a height so great she couldn't even see the top from down here. The Lost Boys were also looking up at the waterfall, only with some unease. What is it? The mark on the map points all the way up there, Cubby said dejectedly. Climbing the precipice would be quite a challenge. But then Peter Pan said, relax, a little pixie dust and we'll be there in a jiffy. But we never had to fly that high before. Cubby lowered his gaze, perhaps frightened. What if we fall? Slightly didn't appear so confident either. Aqua wasn't sure what pixie dust was, but getting to the top would have been a monumental task for those two. Hey, when did you two turn into cowards? As Peter Pan reprimanded the Lost Boys, Aqua couldn't stop herself from appealing on their behalf. Don't you think you're asking a bit much of them? This is between me and them, Aqua, said Peter curtly, crossing his arms before the Lost Boys. Men, only the bravest of the brave can claim that treasure. Yeah, we know. Cubby had no choice but to fall in line at Peter's firm tone. Tink, if you would. Despite Peter Pan's request, Tinkerbell looked away hesitantly. We haven't got all day. When Peter prompted her again, this time a bit more strictly, she slowly floated into the sky along the waterfall and created a locus of light. Is that light the pixie dust? Follow Tink! Peter would not take no for an answer, so the Lost Boys hopped into the air at his command. When they did, the two of them floated and began paddling upward, like they were swimming through the air. Peter Pan flew after them and called to Aqua. Come on, you too, Aqua! Following Peter's lead, she pushed off the ground and drifted upward. It was an extraordinary feeling. Even the once nervous Lost Boys seemed to be having fun. After Aqua and the others climbed the light to the top of the waterfall, the sights that greeted them very much resembled their starting point. Hey, aren't we back where we started? Aqua murmured softly. Slightly spoke with disappointment. You mean we went all the way around Neverland for nothing?
Yeah, well, you conquered all sorts of obstacles to get here, and to me, that's certainly not nothing.
Peter Pan advised the Lost Boys. He seemed like an older brother looking out for his younger siblings, in a way that reminded Aqua of Terra and Ven. You know, I had you all wrong. You were just looking out for them back there, being a good leader. Aqua apologized for her misunderstanding.
Yeah, of course I was.
Peter replied bashfully, turning away. The moment didn't last long, though. A voice rang out from nearby.
You're too late, Peter Pan. I'll be taking what's mine now. It's Hook!
Hook and an older pirate who looked like a minion stood flanking the treasure chest a short distance away.
Smee, secure me treasure.
Aye, aye, Captain. The old man, Smee, opened the chest.
Captain, it's the treasure. It's been...
Upon opening the box, Smee struggled to explain.
Spit it out, you idiot.
Hook yelled as he peered inside the chest. When he did, he saw that what he had expected, the gold doubloons and jewels, were nowhere to be found. Instead, it was full of toys and other knickknacks.
Odds fish, it's all junk.
What do you mean, junk? Those are our treasures, Hook. Peter retorted as the pirate wailed.
But what did you do with my treasure?
Hook flailed his arms about like a child, yelling even louder. Oh, we lost it all. Cubby casually answered to Hook's desperate plea.
You what? You scurvy brats have crossed me for the last time.
Hook quivered with rage, but just then the ticking of a clock arrived.
That sound.
Hook trembled and, as if on cue, a crocodile popped its head out of the river, running into the waterfall.
Not you again! No! Get away from me!
Though he was waving about a left hand that could have served as a weapon, Hook was unable to overcome his terror and blindly fled with a scream.
Wait, Captain!
Smee followed his lead. The escape was so amusing that Peter and the others burst out in laughter, and even Aqua couldn't help but giggle. All that remained was a treasure chest. The whole group gazed at it in a circle. Is this? Aqua spotted Ven's practice blade amid the random assortments and picked it up.
Oh, Vanitas left that here,
said Peter Pan, looking at Aqua.
I guess it's a special keepsake or something, but don't worry about him. He said he'd be all right without it, and then he promised to visit us again with even better treasures, maybe enough to fill 100 treasure chests.
Aqua gazed at Terra's name carved into the wooden sword. Ven, he was here. Aqua murmured softly, and the moment she did, an intensely dark presence seized her attention. And someone else. It was coming from somewhere not so far away. What's the matter? Cubby inclined his head worriedly. It's nothing. Best that you stay here. Not wanting to worry them, Aqua swallowed off and took off toward the source of the darkness. The village.
It's that masked boy. So, having a good time hanging out with the kiddies?
When she reached her destination, she was greeted by a voice dripping with sarcasm. There he stood. In his hand was Ven's wooden keyblade. How'd you get that? She just put it back in the treasure chest a moment ago.
I think that kid's outgrown such a childish toy, if you ask my opinion.
The masked boy, Vanitas, snapped the wooden sword and discarded it on the ground. He then summoned his own keyblade to his hand and held it in a fighting stance before Aqua. She glared at him, but her breath caught in her throat.
Just like I've outgrown my need for you,
he said. Gritting her teeth at his insufferable attitude, she shouted,
You freak!
And took her keyblade firmly in hand. This was her second time facing the boy. The dark miasma around him was far more intense than before. Just as she had grown stronger during her travels, so would he. The two of them gauged the space between them, sharing a hostile glare all the while. Vanitas was the first to move. Closing the distance in a flash, he sent out an inky blackness from his keyblade. Aqua blocked it, built up momentum, and then launched her own offensive. Vanitas took a step back to dodge, but then his keyblade was ramming into her chest. Ah! An instant later, she slammed her own keyblade into his neck. Vanitas tumbled back, only to right himself swiftly and come at her anew. They both exchanged strike after strike, and it seemed like their duel would never reach a conclusion. After one particularly fierce clash of their weapons, Aqua and Vanitas stepped away from each other. They were both panting heavily. Sweat beaded on their foreheads the moment they stopped moving. Neither one could take much more. Aqua managed to catch her breath and brought her Keyblade back into position. Though she couldn't see the boy's face behind his mask, he was surely as exhausted as she was. She turned her Keyblade on Vanitas, then sprang into the air and brought it down on his shoulder. His Keyblade drove into her abdomen, but Aqua bore the pain for a moment so she could get in an uppercut with her weapon on Vanitas' chin. His body sailed through the air, then slammed to the ground, all sprawled out. His Keyblade had been knocked from his hand, and a moment later, it hit the earth beside him. Aqua, too, sank to the ground on her knees. "I've done it. He's finally finished." Ven's broken practice sword lay in Aqua's field of vision. Wanting to pick it up, she tried to stand, only to slump to the ground once more. A smile filled her face. "Ven, Terra, you can rest easy." Aqua's consciousness grew faint, and the last thing she saw was the blue sea. As if he'd been waiting for Aqua's eyes to close, Vanitas practically sprang to his feet. "Man, that actually hurt," he muttered. Rubbing his abdomen, he snickered. His wounds weren't serious, and the pain was what made him stronger after all. Countless little aches harangued Vanitas' body. "Guess that means more little pieces of me are gone. Wonder who it was. Terra? Ventus?" A dark corridor opened before the cackling boy. "Let's get ready for the grand finale, shall we? I bet Master Xehanort is gearing up right about now, too." Vanitas practically buzzed in anticipation of what was to come, and then he vanished, melting into the darkness. Somebody was calling her name through the blackness. "Aqua!" She could see Peter Pan's worried face. There were the Lost Boys, too, and lastly, Tinkerbell. "Are you all right? What happened?" "I'm fine," she said to the concerned Peter, then slowly got to her feet. She couldn't sense the masked boy's presence any longer. "Oh no! Look at Ven's treasure!" Peter Pan exclaimed as his gaze landed on the broken wooden sword. "It's okay, Peter. Whatever it is that binds us together isn't going to break so easily. And that's our real treasure. I think Ventus knew that. That's why he left this behind," said Aqua as she picked up the broken sword. "You must be really close. And that's something pretty special. You and Ventus and Terra, was it? One day, you should all come back." "I'd like that." Aqua replied to Peter with a smile, then looked at the sky. Still, where did that masked boy go? End of part 2.